Mr. Nair, what are some of these possible solutions for network performance issues? We had a very detailed presentation right now, and we saw that. But some of the innovation that our speakers here did, especially with an organization of that scale, and especially BFSI, where security plays a major role. So, how have you sort of seen things evolve over the past few months? What are the solutions that you have offered? Any anecdotes that you can talk about?
Yeah, so when the lockdown happened, I think there was some quick fix VDIs were put in place. Network, aggregation was done. Yes, scale in some customers was a problem statement because especially when you talk about IT and when there is a younger crowd, they started being in the city and then they quickly went back to their hometowns, and that's when certain interesting things started happening because the performance was an issue initially. I think what was told is actually an anecdote we saw where people, when they went back to their hometowns, there is only one kind of broadband connection and maybe a cable operator who's also offering you a alternate kind of cable broadband connection with limited capacity. So this was a challenge. Now, in order to actually overcome some of this, yes, what I heard is, one was a communication structure. The other one which we saw is that, okay, can we have some mechanism to actually ensure quality on whatever be the connection? Now what I don't want to sell a dream here and say that when the connection is bad, you're going to have a better connection. It's whatever be the connection, can you actually improve your performance on that connection? And for that, it is the way you look at the data. The data itself, ultimately, at a technical level, we use TCP data. And in case there is some way to actually compress it and use it as voice, which is much, much, much leaner and thinner, it becomes a lot more efficient. So that's what we try to look at. Now, when you look at VDI connections, there can be some sessions which are, a VDI connection is quite thin normally, okay? But if the customers have not gone, and in case you don't have, especially in ITAS customers, you are dependent on that connection going all the way abroad, okay? So because you're running out of a data center probably in US or Europe or wherever, and you're actually offering that connection at, going down to the smallest town in India, can you actually ensure that the quality can be improved? And those are areas where we offered specialized app WAN solutions, which was useful for the customer in order to actually ensure that compression was established on the fly. It was just a license. They didn't have to do anything disruptive. There was no hardware to be bought or no extra effort to be done. It was all centrally managed, and you can see the performance. Most importantly is the noise. I think which Siddharth said is a noise which you get, from pockets, especially on month ends if things don't work. Okay, so what is your ability to actually react and fix? Okay, that ability to actually see what the problem is and be able to address it, despite you can't control which connectivity you can get in any remote site. You won't get a premium kind of connectivity. You have to make do with what you have. And can you actually accelerate? Can you actually secure? Can you actually provide better quality on that? That was the key area we kind of focused on.
Interesting. So solving the challenge of low bandwidth situation in remote places, and how do you sort of be innovative there? I mean, this is interesting. Using voice instead of TCP, right? So that has worked for most companies, is it?
Yeah, quite a lot of companies it has helped, because what happens just at a ratio level, if you really look at it, every IP TCP packet, if I were to call it, it is at 1500 bytes. Okay. That gets compressed to less than 70 to 80 bytes. So 1500 is, so we saw in certain cases, improvement as high as 10x. Okay, so, but you can't still control. I mean, what I don't want people to think and take away is that if the connection is bad and you're having a lot of jitter, you're going to suddenly have an improvement. But what you can do is people open up, applications, multiple applications on their laptops, and each of these consume capacity. They don't know about it, but can you actually do something about it? and not every industry goes into for VDI. There are some industries which focus on VDI, and VDI is a good practice if you are going remote. But many IT companies don't do it, many businesses don't do it. So can you actually figure out a way to actually still manage a better quality?
How are service providers helping call centers continue in the new normal? What has your experience been with call centers?
Okay, from an overall customer experience perspective, what we saw is two kinds of play. I mean, one was the initial call centers which had to be up and running as quickly as possible. Government had given some, call centers in India are highly regulated, especially their voice call centers. And what you guys just told me very clearly is that you don't like your IVR and you don't like your chatbots, and you want to actually ultimately all of us want to land up at that agent, and they're searching for that digit where I can get to an agent. Okay, so there was this challenge of it being a regulated voice, being a regulated kind of a scenario. We had to do certain things specifically for our customers. This was done quite quickly, in the initial lockdown phase itself, because that part of the business could not be stopped. And there were challenges as people moved to their homes. Some of these, like we have two panelists who are bankers. They know that they some of them actually wanted to ship their entire desktop to the home. They wouldn't work on any other, because BYOD was not a policy, and there was not a ready-made policy to actually ship new laptops. So, but these were all addressed, and the basic idea was to actually bring that customer, agent live with what they were doing as quickly as possible. But an interesting trend which we saw is when customers actually said, "Okay, I have moved away from the branch, but my branch was doing most of my business. Then what do I do about it? Okay, I'm not going to have that walking customer who is looking for an quick resolution to a problem, or more importantly, it could be a new customer asking for me for a home loan. So the smart thing which I heard also the panelists say is, number one, through analytics they targeted the customers. That was one way, but we all know how good we are with a random call coming on our mobile phone and us being very cooperative with such a person, versus being little targeted and addressing if someone has accessed digitally your environment, then having a follow-up nudge through an SMS, then having a follow-up nudge through a contact center. So these were some things which we saw a lot of, and that enablement was something which we found useful. I think there were plenty of use cases where customers were actually analyzing, where are they dropping the customer? Okay, where I like what she said. It is a fact that sometimes we become so creative in our IT systems that we make the customer go around the tree. Okay, so I think the idea was that can you spot such a frustrated customer and address it somewhat differently. I know that some of the banks had a very standard policy that when a customer called for complaining, they were able to actually upsell to that customer a new product. Okay, so that was pre-COVID. Now, how do you actually get back to that in a more targeted fashion was something which we saw. Also, we saw even on, let's say, the retail space where people were stopped going into a shop and a showroom. How do you actually do something about it? I think there was some interesting use cases which we saw. You can obviously buy a television on Amazon, but you want to actually see the television. You want to speak to some expert who can buy that television, and then you want to actually buy it. You don't go ahead and just buy a television. Maybe one major investment which you may be doing online. So you want to talk to an expert. Now, can you enable that? Those were the interesting customer experience parts which we kind of found people extending their current digital platform to a more new environment. So that we definitely saw as a new improvement.